The What's Neat This Week video podcast is supported by enthusiastic model railroaders just like you. Additional support is provided by Athearn Trains. Check out all their new monthly announcements at Athern.com.
Additional support for What's Neat This Week is brought to you by SoundTraxx, industry leaders in model railroad sound and technology for over 30 years. Now please visit our website at SoundTraxx.com, and at checkout, be sure to use the promo code WNTW15 for 15% off of your purchases. And while you're there, be sure to check out our YouTube channel and other information that we have on our website to help you get more familiar with Model Railroader Reader's Choice Award winner 2 times for Favorite Sound Decoder.
Additional support is provided by Jelsma Graphics, America's leading distributor of quality railroad art and embroidered clothing since 1985. Check out their website at jelsma.com. Further support is provided by the NCE Corporation, the power of DCC. Visit their website at ncedcc.com. And thank you for supporting the What's Neat This Week podcast. This is the What's Neat This Week show, number 139 for December 12th, 2020. This is a show where you sit down with friends all in the model railroad community and have fun, and that's just what we're going to do tonight. First of all, I've got sitting next to me, Campbell Rice.
Hey, everybody.
Hello, Campbell. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, good to be here.
On the other side of the monitor, we've got Mike Budde. Hey, Mike.
Hey, everybody.
Next to me, I've got my amazing wife, Michele Patterson.
Hello.
And out in Skype land, coming to us all the way from the UK, our sister model railroader, Jennifer Kirk. Hey.
Hi there, everyone.
You've got ears on, Jenny. You look great.
Thank you very much.
Starting out with new news and what's going on in the hobby, Athearn has announced, and I want to talk about this, I couldn't wait to talk about this. We've been waiting for this for 3 years now, and that is the announcement of the new Union Pacific Veranda turbines. You'll remember that Union Pacific came out with these units in 1954, and they had 15 of these units. And this is the unit that's different from the unit I've got on the table that Daniel's shooting right now. That's a slab turbine. The Veranda turbine was a redesign where they redesigned the walkways on the inside of the unit where there was access from the outside. It was kind of a vestibule type of a design. I'm showing you photographs of them right now. This is a model that I shot that came from a previous run from Athearn Trains, but it's still an absolutely beautiful model. I shot this one in the desert scene, a lot of different tight close-up shots, an amazing wheel arrangement. And the exciting thing about this turbine is this is going to be the first time that a turbine comes out with the new Tsunami 2 turbine decoder. Okay, this is amazing. This decoder doesn't sound like a jet airplane. This decoder actually sounds like an actual turbine locomotive. It's got the whoosh, the rush sound of the air. SoundTraxx sat down with a lot of the engineers that actually ran the actual turbines back then, and they had them test and listen to the sound to make sure it sounded exactly correct as per their memories of driving the locomotive. So I wanted to mention that. And if by the way, SoundTraxx is still offering for Christmas all of the What's Neat viewers. If you go on their website and you place an order for SoundTraxx decoders, you put in the code WNTW15 and you get 15% off of your order from SoundTraxx. So thank you very much, Nancy and George and all the folks out there in Durango, Colorado. And with that, we have Jennifer Kirk. So Jenny, tell us what's new in the UK.
Well, we've just had a whole load of new announcements from Rapido. I think you'll be quite familiar with them, but they've finally launched their own range in the UK. They've done special commissions before now for places like the National Railway Museum, but I've just been really excited to see a whole load of models announced from them as well. We've also got a new range of Stay Alives come out from another company called DCC Concepts. And these are really tiny capacitors. So really, really excited, really looking forward to being able to check these out as well.
Gosh, I want to tell you how much I appreciate you staying up. I think it's 2 o'clock in the morning where you are as we're recording this right now.
It's really late or really early, depending on which way you want to look at it.
Yeah.
And last night, Michele and you actually did a test Skype for 2 hours and 20 minutes.
Yes,
And
we
you
did.
guys came up with a lot of neat stuff to talk about, Michele. So
Yeah, I did. And, Jenny, you've done some really interesting things. And first I wanted to ask you, though, I don't really know how you got in the hobby. I didn't ask you that. And I want to know how you got into this.
I blame my father. When I was very, very young, my father was basically looking for an excuse to get his trains from when he was a child out. And I'm the middle of three, and I'm the one that took the bait. And I've just got these early childhood memories of my father laying out his trains from the 1960s. And I'd be sort of peering over the table, and he'd be running them. And every once in a while, my hand would snake out to try and touch something, and he'd be like, "No, no, 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 no! Daddy will show you how this works." And that's kind of how it began. And I think I absorbed a lot of the enthusiasm that he had for all modes of transport, but particularly trains.
Well, you did something in Scotland called the Biggest Little Railway in the World Challenge, and that was just fascinating. I was reading about that. There's a whole dissertation about it on Wikipedia, and I was really impressed. There were challenges from the very beginning with that, starting with the cost of the traditional track. You had to overcome and be creative, and get that going. And then I think it said they were not including volunteers, 171 people involved in that, and you had so many obstacles: canals, fields, mountains, everything. So talk about some of the challenges that you faced with that and what you experienced.
Well, the route itself, they did plan a railway back in kind of the railway mania building period in the 19th century, and it never got finished beyond a place called Fort Augustus. And the idea behind the challenge was not only that we were effectively going to complete that missing rail link, but we were going to do it in such a way that we were going to try and get the Guinness World Record for the longest model railway track. Unfortunately, we didn't get that purely on a technicality. All the track had to be laid down at once in one continuous route, but because it was something like 72 miles of track.
Wow. That's a lot of track.
On it 11 articulated lorry trailers, semi-trailers, and there was literally tons and tons of this track. But of course, it was crossing public roads, and you couldn't leave the track down because the cars would destroy it, and the local authorities would get really annoyed. So we had to leave gaps, and as the train came, they just pull out a stretch of track, clip it up, run the train across, and then unclip it again so that the cars could keep moving. And because of that, we didn't get the world record, but we did lay the track all the way straight, basically from one side of the country to the other. And on that route, it includes the mountain Ben Nevis, which is one of the 3 tallest peaks in the whole of the UK. And there was a point in the filming where we were actually laying up a path that was so steep you had to scrabble up it on all fours, and we had to devise ingenious ways to actually get this live steam locomotive to go up and down these gradients.
Wow.
That's amazing. You sent us a lot of photographs of that. Did they actually build this trestle across the creek to accomplish this project?
Yeah, there were a number of locations where they had to do what they called special builds. So in one location, it had to go from one side of the canal to the other. And this is a canal that can take not huge ships, but certainly quite big ones. So it's bigger than an ordinary canal. And so they had to build a bridge that you could deploy across this quite large gap.
Yeah, that's long. Wow. What is it, about 30 feet across that canal?
Something like that, yes. And of course, the canal's quite deep. If the train fell off, that was it. You could have lost it.
That's gone.
But then there was another location in Inverness where they needed quite a change in height to get down a slope. And there was no other way to do it other than building a spiral. So there's a structure there in the pictures, which is a spiral on a grand scale that had
That's
built.
a big helix. That's a huge helix.
Yeah,
We're
is.
showing pictures of this as you're talking, and this is amazing.
And actually, in the TV series, the locomotive actually ran through that very, very reliably. There was a trestle bridge across a little creek, and that, I mean, for me, I think that was probably the most special thing to see. I actually got to see that in person because the group I was part of, built the track up to there, and it was just amazing to see. And then there was other things like they built a viaduct across the spillway for the canal, where if the canal gets too full, there was a spillway into the river, and this train had to cross that in such a way that if the water was running over the spillway, the bridge had to stay put and keep the train out of that water. So there was things like that along the route.
So how did you power this?
The train itself was live steam,
Oh,
so
okay.
it ran on like propane gas.
Yeah.
They just had to keep filling it up. It was made by a company called Roundhouse Engineering,
Okay.
and the actual locomotive design, you can actually buy them off the shelf. They're called the Silver Lady. So it wasn't really modified for the challenge. It was something that you could just go out and buy for your own garden line. And
Neat.
we really put that little locomotive through, to hell. I think that there's even some photographs there of me holding it at the end, and you can see that it has fallen off the track so many times. It was battered and bruised, but it still worked at the end, which is pretty good testament to how well Roundhouse Engineering make those products.
Absolutely. Wow.
This photograph of the trailer with all the track on it. This is large-scale track, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, the actual gauge, to all intents and purposes, it was O gauge track. So it was 32 millimeters across the railheads. The locomotive itself was SM32, which is kind of like narrow gauge, but it runs on the same width of track as O gauge. There was, literally 72 miles of it coming in. I think there were... I'm trying to remember how long each length was. You can see on the back of that trailer, and you'd think that trailer load would go a long way. But when you're laying 72 miles, the logistics of doing that, because, we weren't going through somewhere where you could just drive a semi up and just unload what you wanted. We were in the middle of nowhere, far from proper roads in many occasions. And we were having to use quad bikes to pull those little trailers to get all of these supplies down forestry tracks. And there was actually even, you could imagine the amount of mishaps that come in with that. And there's a picture in there of one of the quad bikes being fished out of the canal because it ended up going into the canal. We had problems with, it was the coldest summer that Scotland had for a very long time. So we had to camp. We were under canvas because the logistics, there's just not enough hotel rooms out there for 170 plus people sort of slowly moving across the country. There's just nowhere for us to stay other than to pitch tents at campsites. So it was freezing. They had mosquitoes. We had problems with, there's a plant in the UK that's actually quite poisonous. It's called giant hogweed. And it looks fairly innocuous, but if you get it on your skin, like if it's wet and you just rub up against it, it causes like chemical burns. So quite a lot of us were finding at the end of the day, because all this moisture, because it was permanently raining, was leaching in, and all our legs would swell up and be bright red and painful. So it was an endurance test as much for the people doing it as it was for the locomotive itself.
Wow, it sounds like it.
So how long did it take to set it up? The whole...
We filmed for the filming block up in Scotland was 2 weeks. The first 3 days of that was spent just training with power tools, getting to grips with what we had to do with the track, training people on how to use the quad bikes. But then after that, there was no days off. It was just day after day of relentlessly trying to get this track down. And then we filmed, we had a couple of days filming in London, getting some of the other shots. And they also filmed here for a day as well. And it's one of the things when you do TV, you'll spend an entire day filming loads of stuff, and then when you see the program, they use like 3 seconds of it.
Right.
So they came
Lots
here
of
and
edit.
they filmed an entire day, and it was a case of blink and you'd miss anything from that filming block.
Yeah. Wow.
And then you also did, and this is really interesting because there are so many shows here, reality shows based on competition, baking and cooking. And you did one called the Great Model Railway Challenge. And this was, you were competing against other teams on a theme-based creativity, making these masterpieces based on a theme for each episode. And you were involved in that. And that would be really interesting, a test of your skills and your endurance and your patience. So what tell us about that TV show? That sounds really, really interesting.
It's kind of styled in the same kind of vein as these baking shows where the contestants will get a theme and they have to produce something to that theme within the rules. And with us, it was making model layouts. And they were actually quite large. They were 10 feet by 5 feet, which is, it's quite a reasonable space. But we had 3 days in teams of 6 to transfer that from bare flat wood into the finished creation, and it had to work. It had, you couldn't leave bits that were unfinished, and part of the scoring as well was they were looking for what they termed animations. So kind of like you're trying to get things to move and do lots of unusual eye-catching things above and beyond the trains moving around. And so each episode would have an overarching theme, but then it was up to each team to interpret that theme and come up with a take on that. So, we had things like myths and legends. We had things. The final of the show. The theme for that was just simply surprise, surprise. Interpret that as you will.
Surprise, surprise. Okay, that could be anything.
Yeah.
And that was the thing. I mean, we chose in that to build an interpretation of Dr. Evil's volcano lair from Austin Powers, and we had all of the cliches from all of the films incorporated into it. And if you just built a conventional model layout, it would have seemed boring compared with what all of the teams were doing. And it was about being innovative, about being different. But you couldn't take your time. You just had to get stuck in and make it happen, because it was just 3 days. And if you weren't done in 3 days, it would have been embarrassing. But actually, to the credit of every single team that was involved, everybody finished their builds on time.
Wow.
Which is just amazing.
No pressure there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And the challenge is you got to make this interesting for people that may not like trains.
Right.
So
yeah, and that was one of the big things that came out of that series, was that it got a lot of new people interested in that.
Yeah.
Because they kind of really bought into this creativity, thinking out of the box and not being conventional.
Right.
And I think there's a lot of emphasis placed on the fun aspect. So it really did appeal to younger children and bringing them into the hobby. It's really been a huge shot in the arm for the hobby in the UK.
Yeah, we need something like that here.
Mm-hmm.
I think that would go over really well.
Oh, I would think it would. We'd get anything to promote the hobby and get more kids and people interested is always a good thing.
Well, Jennifer's put me in contact with the producer of that show, and we've exchanged emails over the past 6 months discussing bringing that to the United States.
Cool.
But we haven't, the holdup was finding actually a channel or a TV station or something like that to actually want to work with us and put it on the air. So that's something that I would look forward to. You can contact us through our What's Neat This Week Facebook page or What's Neat This Week YouTube site and readers' comments. And let's put this together in the United States. Let's put a shot in the arm of model railroading here in this country, and let's produce a competition show similar to that. We've actually attempted to do kind of a show like that at one time, but we never did complete the edit on that. So yeah, kind of rock and roll on that. You know what? Something I want to bring up right now while I've got everybody here. Obviously this is December and it's Christmas. And our friend, Denny Jelsma, said in an email, He said, Ken, you know that wonderful GM&O jacket you keep showing off? He said, that's Campbell Rice's favorite railroad. I already know that.
Yeah, I've got mine over there.
He said, would you please give that to Campbell Rice
What?
as a Christmas gift?
No way.
So rock and roll. Surprise,
Christmas.
surprise. This is no longer going to be in the studio.
Wow.
This beautiful
Holy cow.
300,000 stitches
That is beautiful.
is hanging up
That
on
is
all our
great.
cables, but this is now yours, as long as it fits you.
Oh, I'm sure it will.
Yeah, he'll make it fit.
I'll make it fit. Wow. Gee, Denny, I don't know what to say. I'm kind of speechless.
Yeah.
Yeah, I fell in love with it the first day I saw it down here. I've been drooling over it every time I come down here. But, wow, that's a shock. Thank you, Denny, very much. It's well appreciated.
He also said that this week he's come out with a brand new NNS. And I'll put this on the screen.
No. There's no and.
NS.
Thank you.
Everybody yells at me for saying N and S. I'm sorry, I have speech impediment.
Norfolk Southern.
NS, Norfolk Southern, brand new. And I think he said there was like 300,000 stitches in that one too. Wow. So it's absolute art. I love how the thread shines. But thank you very much. You know what else? I got something on the table here. These are cool. He makes us these caps for the wintertime. I really like that. So hats off to Denny. Thank you so much for what you do for us. I love my jacket.
Very much.
I got a brand new Wathers catalog when I was down at Microengineering. They sent Microengineering 2 of them, so Ron Rands gave me one of them. And why am I bringing this up? This is a 2021 one that I've been trying to get Daniel to get me from Mark Twain. And I got it for free, Daniel, so I don't need it. But this is one of the most important tools on your workbench, and I'll tell you why. Before you go to your favorite hobby shop, maybe Lombard Hobbies, to make your purchases, you want to go through the Wathers catalog to even see what's available in model railroading. And they've put all scales together in this now. It's HO scale, N scale, and Z scale, all in the same catalog. So hats off to Stacy Wathers and the crew up there in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. This is the most important tool on your workbench. So everybody get your 2021 Wathers catalog. They are out. So
Cool.
how about that?
Put on my list.
What else is on the list on the table? I got a couple things more to talk about real quick here. Rick Dakota Kempf, our friend that we interviewed for the RPM meet, the last RPM meet that was in St. Louis, he shared those beautiful, great big auto racks in G scale from Trains USA that he was weathering with the veterans and the various beautiful paintwork on that. But he sent us a baggage car, and this is the Wathers baggage car, and this is for the George Bush Memorial. This was a car that ran with George Bush's casket in the car. And he said he's created over 600 of these for people that really wanted them. He's now employing 3 people full-time to work with him in his studio to create these. He puts he puts lighting in them, a capacitor in them so that they stay lit. He has the coffins and everything custom made. He cuts out the door, puts in plexiglass, and puts in the appropriate soldier inside the car. I photographed this inside and I just showed you the video clip of that. If any of you are interested out there in purchasing one of these or getting one of them, he said, go ahead and mention my email address, which is Dakotas, D-A-K-O-T-A-S, Railroad Shop at hotmail.com, or you can find Rick Dakota Kemp on Facebook. He says they're $250 plus shipping, but rock and roll. I mean, here's a gentleman who's literally created a business out of nothing, and I wish him the best of luck with him and the employees that he's now, gotten jobs for.
Does great work. Great work.
He does do that. Also on the table tonight, we've got a Bachmann Dash-9. For the first time ever, folks, you get to see the Dash-9 from Bachmann. This is still pre-order right now. The reason I have this model is because we are going to shoot the 2021 Bachmann catalog cover, and it just so happens I've got G-scale dioramas in foam that I built a few years back with super elevated curves that I'm going to finish out and build this on, and I'll make that a segment on the What's Neat video on how I create and build the scene to shoot this locomotive. I don't think I'm going to build the scenery in the background on this one. I think I'm going to load this all up in my big excursion and just take it out live in location and use real scenery for the background, because depth of field is not an issue with large scale. Everything will be in focus if I do it that way. The problem is I don't have green trees here. So maybe I can find some pine trees or some appropriate scene that looks Santa Fe. I'm guessing. But rock and roll, that's the thing I wanted to mention on the table that we've got. Remember last week we talked about the Wabash and the Norfolk and Western GP7s that Athern was announcing. Somebody put in readers' comments on YouTube that this, in fact, is the same locomotive. So I guess it was Wabash first, or was it the other way around? Norfolk and Western? How did the history go?
Wabash
first.
It was
Yes.
Wabash first, and then Norfolk and Western took the same locomotive and repainted it. I did not know that. So I wanted to bring that up.
I'm excited for the L&Ns, actually.
How about that? I know.
That'd be
Those
cool.
are beautiful.
Yeah.
I showed the screen captures of those last week. We got a Christmas card from Greg McComas. Greg McComas, you'll remember him as having the Interstate Michigan Railroad Company. We had him featured on show number 126, I think it was. And he showed about 130 photographs of his amazing freelanced railroad. But anyone, thank you very much for the Christmas card. We got it, and we very much appreciate it. And that's all the stuff on my list, so we can just go back to Jenny and Michele and Mike and Campbell and let you guys have a discussion.
Well, you know, I spent the last couple days kind of browsing through Jenny's YouTube videos, and they're fascinating. So go on and watch her, because she really is really great on there. So, and you do a live every Monday?
Yeah,
You do
every
live
Monday,
show?
a community live stream. And one of the things that I found works really well with that I've tried to really do to really foster a sense of community is to share other people's videos that they send in links to, and try and help other people's YouTube channels get noticed. And it's really worked incredibly well. So we've built up a great audience, a great feel amongst people who, especially during all this period with the COVID, may not have been able to get out as much, may not have been able to meet people, meet friends. And a lot of the model rail clubs and exhibitions, certainly in the UK, have been cancelled. So it's been a great way of kind of giving that different outlet that people feel that they're a part of something that's still going on.
Live show. Are you listening, Ken?
I am.
We
I
talked
listened
about
last
that.
night.
We
Last
talked
night.
about the live show.
Michele has agreed that I am doing a live show, and in fact,
All right,
she's going
there
to
you go.
participate with me and read the readers' comments as we try to work together. I actually, you know what, guys, I'm starting to bring Michele into the show and work with her more, because it just makes my life easier, and I feel so much better sitting at this table when I've got you sitting next to me, or I've got Joshua or Mike, or people that I feel very comfortable with working with. I mean, it's no secret that, you know, it doesn't matter if we've done 139 shows. Everybody tells me right before the show I'm nervous as a chicken on a hot roof.
Oh, yes.
Chicken on a hot roof.
Is that a saying? Give me another saying. I learned a saying from Jenny last night, rubbish, and I thought that was great, rubbish. We had a lot of fun talking last night, and she put me, she uses a video device, and we looked it up tonight on the internet. I still have a lot of study and research to do to get into the live show aspect of things. I like doing a pre-recorded show. Oh, look, you're holding it up. What is that?
It's the Elgato Stream Deck.
Hold that up a little higher. Not that we want our competition to buy one of those, but hold that up a little higher.
Can you see that? Okay, it's
No,
that's
really.
right
Yeah,
into the cable. It's plugged into the
Oh,
computer.
that's okay. Then don't worry about
Don't
it.
worry about it. Yeah, but just barely see the top of it.
But the fact is, you say you can run 5 cameras on that, and that's exactly what we want, is a system like that.
Yeah, you could actually run more than that. That just happens to be all the cameras that we've got. But you can do things like you can change what they call scenes. So you can have multiple cameras on screen at the same time, but you can change the order of them using the different buttons. It's got, I think it's 15 different buttons. You can have 15 different scenes that you can just cut to at the press of a button, and it makes live streaming so much easier.
I want you to show or tell Ken how you do your comments on your live feed, so that when people type it up there, it comes up on the screen. I think that interaction is really great to have.
I agree.
Yeah, I mean, it's just done through YouTube. So the stream itself is on YouTube, and they're all just the little widgets that are in YouTube that you can use to build up what you want to do. It's just a really great immediacy of interaction with the audience. And people really like that, the fact that they can ask a question and it just gets answered there and then, rather than leaving a question in the comment of a video,
Right.
and maybe get an answer a month later when it gets seen. It's a much better way of connecting with an audience.
Right. The only reason we haven't done a live show is because we did a live show from Kansas City. If you go through our list, the Kansas City NMRA, Chris Palomares held up his cell phone in a restaurant, and we attempted to do a live show that way.
Does that count?
Yeah.
That doesn't really count, but it's still on YouTube.
You did one down here one time.
Did we?
Yeah,
we
we
tried
did.
a live show down here
Yeah,
too.
we tried one time.
But the fact is, you can't control the edit. Any one given show, if you look at last week's show, I cut out 3 minutes seamlessly, and you don't even know it, where people made various comments or things happened that you don't want to have happen. Because on a live show, you've got enough rope to hang. And when you've got sponsors, you want everything to be absolutely perfect, pristine, polished. I want a quality presentation, and I have that when I sit down here and do a 30-hour edit. But I would love to get out of doing that 30-hour part so I can apply more time, A, to running trains, my family, but also put more time into the What's Neat show at Model Railroad Hobbyist Magazine, which every single month I produce that show, and that requires a great deal of time. I love it when James Regier supplies me with video, or George Bogatuk. There's been a lot of folks in the past that have helped take some of the weight off my back by supplying us with video for that and completely editing it. Plus, it comes from a different... You brought a gentleman over here. What was his name that did all that scenery?
Tim Schreiner.
Tim Schreiner. That was a whole show, scenery from start to finish a couple of months ago, and I think it was November, where he showed us rock castings and trees and vegetation. And that video's got like 50,000 views.
Yes, it's done good.
So yeah, rock and roll. This is a team effort. We're all friends. Ain't none of us getting rich doing this. We just do this because this is our passion. I mean, we're simple model railroaders making a show, and now we're going to also partner up with Jenny or work with her more because she's got something good going on.
Thank you very much. Definitely, and it's just a great honour to be asked onto this show. I mean, this is one of the giants of the hobby community. So it is an amazing honour, and thank you for inviting me on.
Well, that's a big compliment.
Great, yeah. No kidding.
Hey, Mike, buddy, you're awesome, brother. And I made a comment last week that you taught me about weathering and changed my life. But it looks like you brought some models tonight. What do you got to talk about?
Well, Jenny's a tough act to follow. All I've been doing is working on these little trailers here.
You haven't been on any reality TV shows
No,
or anything? Okay.
Yeah. But one thing I've been doing is about 2 months ago, a guy named Steve Johnson showed us on Facebook these Deco fabric markers. I got mine at Michael's, and they're perfect for coloring your wheels, and you don't even have to take the trucks off the car. You can just stick the marker right in there and rotate the wheels, and it comes out a really nice brown color. And I suppose you could do the side frames too, but this is a rare, supposed to represent a fairly new car. So anyway, this one is number 222S-6. It was the only thing that looked like this there among a whole bunch of other markers. So anyway, you get some. But yeah, I've been working on trailers lately. They're kind of quick and easy little projects I can do in a couple evenings. And Kevin Nieheisel has really been motivating me to up my trailer game because he does some fantastic work.
Yeah, he does.
And Gary Walton too is another trailer guy. He actually drives for a living, so he really knows his stuff. But I work in the era of 1978, so I've actually been taking some of my 45-foot trailers and cutting the 5 feet off the end and making them into old 40-footers, kind of the opposite of what they did in real life. So these are a couple of Athearn trailers right here. They started out as 45-foot, and I chopped 5 feet off and then glued the door back on. And then this is a kind of a kit bashed trailer that I did. It's kit bash of a UPS trailer. I cast a bunch of them in resin, and
nice work.
That was before the Trainworks drop frames came out. So I have several kinds of drop frame trailers now. Then those last two are just old A-line. Actually, the one is Milepost 501 Hobbies. I don't know if anybody remembers that, but they were the forerunner of A-line. And then A-line is, I guess, now available through Athern. I'm not sure. But anyway, I kind of weathered them up and did them for the railroads that I model, Frisco and Mopac, and then there's always a lot of Penn Central and then leased vans like Extra and stuff. I've got 45 89-foot flat cars worth of trailers to do. So,
well, the good thing about that time period in St. Louis, I think every railroad ran into here,
yep,
so you could
they
do just
sure
about
did.
anything, you know?
Yeah.
Mike, now I know we got you that DCC system through Caboose out in Lakewood, and thank you very much, Chris Palomares, for sending you that. Have you gotten your NCE DCC system hooked up, Daniel? Have you guys worked on that project yet?
No, we've been kind of busy.
And Jenny out in the UK, you told me something last night. I had no idea but you also use the NCE system over there in England, don't you?
Yes, that is correct. And
Look at
I've
that.
got
There it is.
here,
Yeah.
I've just recently bought this actually because I've heard you recommend it, and when I've asked around actually in the UK, quite a few of the other modelers that I know in the UK have also said that it's a system that they also use and recommend. So I got myself one.
Rock and roll.
Cool.
Get yourself one and get your family one for Christmas. That model railroader that you have in your family that's still running Power Pack DC on their layout, don't be afraid. It's simple, it's upgradable, it's an amazing system. I completely stand by it because we use it down here ourselves.
Yeah.
I had a friend that ran DC, and he was interested in all the features of DCC, and he ended up getting the NCE system as well, but he didn't have the money to convert all of his locomotives, so he just put a switch on, a double throw, double pole switch, so he can flip it one way and run DCC and flip it back and run DC.
Good
so
idea.
just
Right.
because you have a bunch of locomotives that are DC doesn't mean you can't get into the hobby of DCC as well.
Right.
No, that's a great idea. So
Yeah.
rock and roll, man. NCE DCC, the power of DCC. And with that, is there anything else? I think we're going to call this one to a close. We covered everything on this one, guys?
I'm still trying to figure out what a chicken would possibly be doing on a hot roof.
Yeah.
I-
Chickens don't fly, do they?
they don't fly.
Maybe it went inside and walked up the steps and came out through the window.
I am such a lucky guy. Oh, hi, Lucky. Well, rock and roll. All right, guys. So, best hobby in the world with the best people in it. Campbell Rice, Mike Budde, Michele Patterson, and Jennifer Kirk. Thank you very much for making 139 seamlessly an easy show. And now I get to do the edits. So with that, folks, let's go run some trains.
All right.